What did your parents' family do that you later realized was insane? When my mother left my dad, she pitched a tent in my walk-in closet. I was 7 or 8 and she lived in my freaking closet for months before she got her own place. I still remember her reading her Joyce Meyer books by lamplight. That's actually kinda sad. They kept everything. Everything. The moment I walked into my friend's house and realized you're not supposed to have stuff lining the walls was ridiculous. My mom once blew out the pilot lights on our gas stove, cranked up the gas, and told 7yo me and my 14yo sister to go to sleep. I went to bed, not knowing any better. Luckily, my sister dragged me out of the house and we sat in the car. Mom finally changed her mind, sobered up a bit, aired out the house, relit the pilots, and took us back inside. That was fun. Holy crap. My mom was always very invested in our romantic lives, partly because that was an area where we didn't stack up well as compared to our cousins. The most insane manifestation of this was when I agreed to go out on a date with a guy, only to find out before the date that he was a sexual predator who'd been arrested after he preyed on 4 separate freshmen at the school where he taught. Mom flipped out trying to convince me not to cancel the date. He might have grown out of it. You don't know if you don't give him a chance. Thankfully, my dad was on my side and I cancelled the date. But mom sulked the entire rest of the night and demanded I log her into my Facebook account so she could scroll through my friends list so that she could see which of my male friends were straight and single so that she could push me towards them. Instead. Your mother is scary. Let homeless punk rockers live with us. Several. And some of them slept in our beds with us. With her permission. Two of my sisters were teen moms. Well, that took a turn. My grandpa would pick up my mom and aunt from elementary school and race the train every time. My mom scared shitless and my aunt cheering him on to go faster. My dad would do that down the Pacific coast away in his truck. I was always so amped and would yell at the train. No restrictions on food or drinks. From the time I was 4 or 5 I was drinking around 5 cans of Dr. Pepper a day. My parents never told me I needed to drink water and real juice was never in the house. Juice when I was little was Hawaiian punch or the 5% juice Minute Maid fruit punch. Lunches during the summer was a continuous cycle of pizza rolls, SpaghettiOs and McDonald's. Breakfast was either chocolate Pop-Tarts or Fruity Pebbles cereal. I don't think junk food now and then is too much, but I don't think I had a single day in my childhood where I wasn't given sweets, fatty snacks and caffeine. The funny thing is, as a kid I used to think it was my friends' parents who were the odd, mean ones for only letting their kids have things like sodas on rare occasions. Looking back I speculate that along with just being lazy parenting, it was also probably my parents' way of trying to make me happy and make up for the lack of time spent with me by buying me whatever junk food I wanted. My brother, while raising his boys, would buy like 10 gallons of milk at a time when it was on sale and then put it in the deep freezer. It never tasted like milk after it thawed. He claimed to not have noticed a difference. Oh, there's a difference, all right. It's because the fat protein of the milk is separated when frozen, since only the water really freezes. It's a really crap explanation, but basically it's kinda like how butter's made. The frozen milk would have a bit of yellow to it and taste a bit like it too. Fun fact, frozen breast milk begins to develop a chalky taste after being frozen, because of lipase. My parents visited underground Atlanta back in the early 90s. Not the safest place. Anyways, my brother was a baby and crawled under a bench they were sitting on. He pulled out an umbrella bag with a very sinister knife inside. My parents don't report the knife or anything, but instead keep it and it becomes a staple knife in our kitchen. So yay. Pretty sure my parents used a murder weapon to cut the crust off our PB&Js. I go to Georgia State, and I'm right by this area every single day, lol. This story is so absurd, but I can imagine this scenario completely. My dad fell victim to many money scams in the early 2000s. He would always say he's sitting on a gold mine and I thought we were gonna be rich. Yeah, I don't think he's learned his lesson. I still catch him replying to Bull's emails. There's a cool movie, Nebraska, about an aging dad and his son where they go on a road trip to collect money from one of those you've won mailer things. Nothing really gets resolved, but it's a great view of the adult-child failing parent dynamic. Imo, your story made me think of it. Gonna go watch it again tonight while having a drink and remembering the rents, the good and the bad. My god brother's parents used to lock us in his room for hours to days at a time. His little brothers learned to pee in the trash can instead of in the floor when we couldn't get them out. We eventually learned how to unlock and relock the hatch from inside the room so that the 4 of us could get out for pee breaks and for snacks when we were feeling really ballsy. I didn't realize how abnormal this was until I was watching a news story in the work break room with a bunch of co-workers about a neglected child being removed from an unfit home. My initial response was that's nothing as I launched into what I just wrote above. I looked around waiting for everyone else's stories, but instead they all just stared at me. I have a brother with disabilities. He's relatively low functioning and requires regular attention, both inside the home and out. I love him to death, but it made for a pretty untraditional childhood. I didn't realize until my late teenage years that other families were happy and relaxed, which isn't to say that they didn't have their problems, just that they weren't constantly preoccupied by one family member who requires more care and attention than others at all times. To be clear, my brother is a wonderful person. I cherish every moment that I get to spend with him now, but at the same time, I spent a disproportionate amount of my childhood in waiting rooms while he went to various therapies, and I spent very little time with my parents growing up because all of their attention was focused on my brother. I was an afterthought because I was lucky enough to be an afterthought and still function. My alcoholic bipolar father would drop me and my 2 siblings off at the grocery store with his credit card and told us to go grocery shopping. We were young kids when this started. He'd either go hit up a bar or wait in the parking lot before coming back to get us. Sometimes it would be a long wait. Looking back, I still don't know how we were able to run his credit card and no one ever batted an eye. We had to cook too, so it wasn't exactly healthy stuff. A lot of times the food would all be gone a week or so before he'd take us back to the store. We had to get really creative. We'd joke that there was nothing left but the goo in the back of the refrigerator. Honestly surprised we didn't develop diabetes, although I am hypoglycemic, or obesity or anything serious. We quickly learned not to buy a bunch of candy or sweets, something that kind of impresses me looking back. I learned to keep an emergency stash of food hidden in my room. One of many insane things, but first that came to mind. His credit score was either amazing or awful. My dad once took 3 of us kids out for a ride in the Pine Barrens. He drove us 20 minutes into the woods on a sandy trail in a minivan. He had just gotten into a fight with my stepmother and needed a drive to burn off all the alcohol in his system. He didn't say much during the ride. We got stuck, obviously because we were in a 2WD caravan, but luckily some 4WD truck dude came through and winched us out. When that guy showed up, Dad wasn't quiet anymore and we left the woods when we were unstuck and went home. I'm not sure what his intentions were that day, but the look on my stepmother's face when we returned made me rethink whether it was a fun ride in the woods or a frick this life moment worthy of the nightly news narrowly averted. My mom is very controlling. She would make me turn my diary over to make sure I wasn't writing anything she didn't approve of. So I saved up enough money by skipping school lunch and bought a secret diary at the book fair. I came home to her sitting on my bed and yelled at me for writing "Mom is a jerk" or something like that. She would have grounded me, but I wasn't allowed out of the house without her escorting me until age 16. She then wondered why I had no friends. I was allowed only 30 minutes on the computer in the computer room and I would have to record which websites I went on and what usernames and passwords I used. She would use the password book to go on the websites and look at who I was talking to. I also just kind of accepted that it was normal for parents to charge rent when you turned 18 and only allow you to eat 1 meal a day, dinner, and have to pay for the others yourself. Get into a screaming argument where they ended up throwing dishes at each other's heads fairly frequently. Wow, they're really mad right now. Better play some Nintendo until this blows over. I would hide in my closet with my Game Boy and book light. It wasn't until way later in life that my sister and I said, wait a second, WTF, when we were young. My father smoked a lot, and when we were with him during the day and said we were hungry, he'd give us each a pack of matches. We'd eat them and then be good. No, we weren't poor, just had lazy crazy parents. I used to babysit my parents' friends' kids occasionally. After I babysit 2 kids that were 4 and 6, my mom said her friend was happy and I did a good job. I was 13. Then she mentioned that was good because her friend was distrustful of babysitters since her other 2 kids had drowned while under a babysitter supervision. Thought that was slightly odd. No helicoptering in the 80s. Dang. That's Olympic level not dwelling on things. Fend for yourself night when I was like 5 and on. We'd have to find our own food that night. I later found out my parents were too lazy to cook for my sister and I, who were just 5 and 8. I used to come up with really weird food combinations, most notably Nutella or peanut butter and candy sprinkles wrapped up in a tortilla. As I got older I began toasting it and rolling it in cinnamon sugar. That was pretty normal in my house, but mostly because our schedules were so wildly different and we all got hungry at different times. Though eventually I got tired of it and started forcing us to eat at a more standard time because I was sick of having pizza rolls or Hot Pockets for dinner. My mother refused to take me to the emergency room growing up. She took my stepdad and my stepsister, but refused to take me. Have permanent damage to my ankle thanks to her refusing to take me there. Thanks mum. I live in UK for reference, so it wasn't like we couldn't afford it. My mom was the same. She was working 6 days a week and didn't have time for any illness. I had a severe pneumonia and she made me go to school anyway. Throughout my childhood I would end up being my dad's therapist. He'd often tell me he sometimes wished he would go to sleep and never wake up. A bit heavy for a 12-year-old to hear from their parent, I guess. After I became a teen and could drive, he'd call me in the middle of the night while I was at my mom's house and ask me to rush over because he was sick and needed help. I spent a lot of nights feeding him jello and sitting awake in his room so he could sleep because his medication would make him hallucinate and think demons were going to kill him in his sleep. It wasn't until I was older I realized I missed a lot of my childhood because I had to parent him instead of the other way around. Eventually he found a wife who takes care of him and cut me out of his life. Apparently he tells her stories about how I never spent time with him and never cared because she sends me rants about how awful I am. I understand. My dad is the same way. Till this day every time we talk he is complaining about his life. I'm sorry you had to go through the same thing. I hope you are living a much better life. Mine's pretty simple. We didn't have money for food when I was a kid. Mum was too embarrassed to apply for food stamps, so we went without. But my parents had no issues buying food only for themselves and refusing to let us have any, including hiding them on high shelves so we couldn't sneak into it. They would eat in front of my sister and I while we sat and stared. They'd get mad and give us each a bite and make us go to our rooms. There would be nothing else in the house to eat, and it didn't matter. As a kid, it sucked, but your parents know what they are doing, right? As an adult, and a parent myself, it's batshit crazy. I could never sit there and eat while my son went hungry. It came out later that my mom was an addict, narcotics and booze, and my dad was more interested in banging any girl who'd have him, including my 16-year-old best friend in HS, than raising any. So yeah, they aren't a part of my life anymore. My in-laws, well mostly my now deceased Melinda brother-in-law swear by trunk food. What is trunk food? It is food that you make, and sometimes cook, sometimes not. And when you go on a road trip, you wrap it up in foil and throw it in the trunk with the spare tire and everything else gross back there. This is only done for long distance trips. When you arrive at your destination, you eat the food. Mill and brother-in-law swore that it makes the food taste better. If the food was uncooked, the idea was that being in a hot trunk for several hours would cook it to the desired temperature. In theory, the cakes were probably the safest. She would make small individual spice cake loaves and wrap them up, and then you'd have spice cake with the gentle aroma of car exhaust. She once made an entire birthday cake for me in the same way, except that it was left in the pan and had icing and minimal wrapping. I ate a slice to be polite, but I was being very polite. I didn't eat the rest. Brother-in-law is the worst though. He is Orthodox Jewish and keeps kosher, which is problematic when traveling long distances, so he's used to having to pack food with him. They used to live in South Carolina and he was driving to Miami to catch a flight to Israel a few times before he actually emigrated there. We live in Central Florida and offered to prepare him some kosher food, but he wasn't having it and brought his own meatloaf out of the trunk of a very hot car on a hot summer day. He wanted to share it with us, but I have this thing about food poisoning, so I didn't eat it. You can only be so polite. Mill has since passed away and brother-in-law now lives in Israel, so no more trunk food. My husband, the twin of brother-in-law, has working brain cells and believes strongly in food safety. Thank goodness. My parents were very poor when I was growing up. Affording a babysitter, or any other kind of childcare for that matter, was completely out of the question. My mom worked days and my dad worked nights, so most of the time there was at least one parent home, even if they were sleeping somewhere. On the rare occasions when neither parent was home or had to go get something they couldn't, or didn't want to lug us around for, we were left in the house alone to our own devices. This started happening when I was around 4, so at 4 years old I was left alone with my first sister, who was literally a baby, then at 6 with one sister that was a toddler while the other was literally a baby. It's horrifying to think about what could have happened on those rare days, since, even with a chair, the phone and door locks were out of my reach. Fight over money but continue to constantly spend beyond their means. Not once did they actually sit down together and mediate over their expenditures and priorities. Just more and more fighting. Never communicate clearly or keep consistent expectations. Environment was always chaotic. Neglectful parenting in general, but didn't let us go without food, clothing, or shelter. They had a lot of kids BC religious reasons. Get into another toxic marriage after leaving the first. I love both my parents and all my siblings, though. Now grown, I realize they're not superhuman and probably did what they knew how at the time. We used to drive from Michigan to South Dakota to see my grandparents, and my brother and I rode in the bed of an F-150 that had a topper on it. We had an inflatable mattress back there, so we'd just sleep for a lot of the 20+ hour drive. Ours had a folding couch in the back, and my dad had a small TV that would run off of the cigarette lighter. He put the cord through the windows of the topper and the rear window of the truck, plugged it in, and we rolled down the highway catching whatever we could out on the way to go fishing for vacation. Good times, those 1980s. My siblings are a lot older than me, so they were out of the house when I turned 8. Both my parents worked, so I would come home to an empty house and make my own dinner. That alone is sort of odd, but when I was 14, my dad got downsized and started driving a semi. My mom got licensed, too. They were driving from coast to coast in the US, leaving a 14-year-old alone for about 3 weeks a month. It's amazing that I never destroyed the house, and that I actually went to school. For years I couldn't figure out how my parents always knew what I was doing. Sneaking a boin, GF bringing in a bottle of vodka, getting in late after curfew, you name it. I chalked it up to them being parents. I was 21 when I found 4 surveillance monitors in the canning closets downstairs. My mom stole a shopping cart with my brother. I was like 7 YO and nearly ratted them out because mom, we don't need that, I don't understand. My family were all Jehovah's Witnesses, so there is a number of things I didn't realize weren't normal until much later in life. Story time, go for it. My grandparents in Italy would burn tons of marijuana plants because it was unknown to them and like an unwanted weed on their farms. I mean, they would never had done anything with it anyways, even if they did know, but still, they burned lots of weed. I'm just imagining a bunch of high as heck farm animals falling over and walking in circles and your grandparents being like, huh, well that's probably normal and has nothing to do with those suspicious weeds we've been burning. Once was told not to wear a seatbelt because too much stuff was in the car. Blackberries were below me. Dad slammed on the brakes. I landed my butt in blackberries. I walk inside a mall to clean up. Mom tries to clean my butt in front of a food court bunch of people. I make her stop and go into a bathroom to clean blackberries off my butt. I started reading this like a list and was very confused that your family considered blackberries to be beneath you, haha. Screamed and raged at me as a way to keep me from having angry outbursts at home and at school. Real freaking smart, Dad. My mom had us each pick out a pebble to put in our shoe each morning. We were told to offer up our suffering for the poor souls in purgatory. Cut to grade 3, gym class. Mrs. Grabowski, our gym teacher. Hero and P. Why are you limping? There's a pebble in my shoe. So take it out. But what about the poor souls in purgatory? She didn't say another word about it. I quit with the pebbles a few years later, but it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized how screwed up the whole situation was. Yeah, hobbling your kids is totally normal. Your teacher noped the frick out of that situation super quick. She kinda let you down there. Picked me up at the hospital after hip surgery. I was born with a dislocated hip. Had a lot of surgeries as a kid. They were kinda no biggie to me at that point, and had to make a detour to check out an antique clock he was thinking of buying. Left me out in the van in a body cast in the middle of a Wisconsin winter for 20 minutes or so while he haggled. Plaster be cold. When I was very young, maybe 5 or 6, my mother would cuddle with my younger brother and I. She thought it was funny when she pretended to die while holding us. I was terrified and I will always remember that. She would wake up from death and laugh to get a reaction out of us. That is my earliest fricked up memory of her. Oh man, I used to love faking my death as a little kid, usually by posing myself in some twisted position at the bottom of the stairs while my dad was out of the house. It's a shame I couldn't have helped you turn the tables on her. Got home from being bullied for being fat. Told my mum. Asked her for advice. She advised me that I was just ugly and to deal with it. I had an eating disorder for years from this. Still relapse a lot. Self-harm. Low self-esteem. We moved every time I made a friend at school. Eventually got into full-on brawls and fights at school. She got called to the school and even when the other kid or parent would admit they started it or apologized, she wouldn't accept that it wasn't my fault. Everything was my fault. RIP you sodding chain smoking C. I just don't understand these extreme parents. Some think their children can never do wrong, even when faced with proof. Then there's others like your mother who will always see faults in their child no matter what they are told or shown. I hope you get yourself in a better place and stay there. My parents believed that king syrup and butter was a delicious dessert. They also refer red to chocolate covered creme drops as enartos. In my family, that was what Brazil nuts were called. Those were my favorite nut in the nut jars, but I didn't know what they were called until I went through the encyclopedia to match the list on the jar with the pictures in the book. My mom drove from Michigan to Cedar Point, awesome roller coaster park, in Sandusky, Ohio with me curled up in the hatchback of one of those really crappy 1890s Ford Mustangs. I was so geeked to ride the roller coasters I didn't even complain. I see another post about another poor kid who rode to South Dakota in the bed of a pickup truck, so I guess I'll just shush now. I had to hang out in the hatchback of a Mustang while the fire department put the chimney fire out in the house. Also from Michigan. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.